TILS is a standardized, norm-reference test of curriculum-relevant oral and written language skills. Its purposes are to identify children with language and literacy disorders, to document patterns of relative strengths and weaknesses, and to track changes over time in language and literacy. Some of the subtests that we will be describing today include vocabulary awareness, non-word repetition, reading comprehension, following directions, and reading fluency. The purpose of including vocabulary awareness in this test is to assess vocabulary, word-level semantic relationships, and cognitive linguistic flexibility.
The starting item is based on age. The examiner reads aloud 3 words. The child must choose a word pair and then explain the semantic relationship. Then, the child must recognize the alternate meaning of one of the words and pair it with the remaining word. Repetition of items is allowed, and the examiner may ask for clarification if a child says that 2 words mean the same thing. This subtest contributes to the sentence discourse and oral composite scores. This subtest is easy to administer, and if the child is confused, coaching is allowed during practice items.
Here are 3 words. Let's read them together. Dog, cat, bone. Now, tell me 2 words that go together.
Dog and bone.
Why?
Dogs eat bones.
Great. Now tell me 2 other words that go together.
Dog and cat.
Why?
Because you can have them both as pets.
Good answer. Other words. Light, sun, feather. Tell me 2 words that go together.
Sun and feather.
Why?
They're both yellow.
Okay, how about sun and light? Do you know why those 2 might go together? Maybe because the sun shines light. Can you think of 2 other words that go together?
Feather and light.
Why?
Because they're both light.
Good.
Scoring is based on correct word pairing and rationale. The basal is 4 consecutive scores of 2, meaning both part A and B of an item are correct. The ceiling is 6 scores of 0 on 8 consecutive items.
Non-word repetition is included to assess a student's speech perception, their ability to hold a sequence of sounds in their memory, and their ability to reproduce those speech sound sequences accurately.
Using the USB provided, the examiner plays the recordings starting from the beginning. There is no basal, and the ceiling is 6 scores of 0 on 8 consecutive items. The non-word repetition subtest contributes to sound, word, and oral composite scores. The recording can be paused, and each item is a separate track number.
I'm going to play a recording for you. The person on the recording will say some words that are pretend. They are not real words. You will only hear the word once. Listen carefully so you can say the word just like the person you hear. Do you have any questions?
No.
Alright, let's begin.
Practice item 1, say bub.
Bub. Okay.
Practice item 2, say stand.
Stand.
Good.
Number 1, say gid.
Gid.
Nice.
Number 2, say stenders.
Stenders.
Okay.
Number 3, say building.
Velding.
Number 4, say tep.
Tep.
Alright.
A correct response matches the expected target in the response form. Targets and their variations are written in IPA.
The reading comprehension subtest is designed to be used in parallel with the listening comprehension subtest to provide a comparison of oral and written comprehension skills. The items or stories are designed to reflect sentences used in academic language. This subtest contributes to the sentence discourse and written composite scores and can be used for the identification of language and literacy difficulties in children between the ages of 12 and 18. The reading comprehension subtest is not to be administered to children under the age of 6 years and 6 months. The START rule is based on age range unless decoding problems are suspected, in which case the child should be screened using Story 1, with testing discontinued if 7 or more words are misread in this first story. The Basel rule is all 3 items correct for 2 consecutive stories, and the ceiling rule is all 3 items incorrect for 2 consecutive stories. Correct responses are scored 1 and incorrect 0, with all 1s counted toward the total score. There are no probes or repetition allowed on the part of the examiner, aside from prompting the student to guess or reminding them if they have skipped a story or question. Students can reread part or all of a story. Now it's your turn to read some short stories and answer the questions in your student response form. Circle yes if you are sure the answer is yes. Circle no if you are sure the answer is no, and if the story doesn't clearly tell you the answer, circle maybe. You may choose to hold the card under each line as you read it. Please read the first story aloud.
What I did on my summer vacation is the topic the teacher makes her class write about the first day of school every year. When school started a month ago, the teacher gave her usual first writing assignment.
And you can keep going with the questions.
Was the Middle East the first writing assignment? No. Did all the students take a trip on their summer vacation? Oh.
Yes.
Maybe? Did the teacher ask her class to write about their summer vacations? Yeah.
This subtest is particularly easy to administer as it follows the highly similar listening comprehension subtest. Once the instructions are provided, the student reads silently or aloud and circles their own responses, which are simply replicated by the examiner onto the examiner record form.
This is the following directions subtest. Its purpose is to measure the student's auditory working memory and comprehension of the language of instruction. The score from this subsection adds to the sentence discourse composite score. Instructions to say to the student are written in the examiner's form. Be sure to be seated where you can view the child's response in their student response form. As well, before giving the child their response form, cover up the graphics. This will ensure no visual memorization is given when the directions are read aloud. Reveal the graphics one line at a time after you say go. Copy the child's response as they do it into your own record form. A Basel of 6 consecutive ones must be reached, and a ceiling is reached after 6 scores of 0 after 8 consecutive items. No probes or repetitions are allowed. However, if the student looks confused, you can say, "Let's try the next one. Are you ready?" Total the scores of 1 for the total score of the subtest. There are exceptions to possible types of responses, which are listed in the manual. As the directions are written on the form, there is no memorization necessary for the examiner, and the only materials necessary are the student response form and a pencil.
I'm going to give you some directions to follow with your pencil in your student response form. Listen carefully because I can only say them once. When I say go, move the card and use your pencil to follow the directions exactly as I told you. We'll try 2 for practice. Practice number 1. Cross out the circle. Go. Great job listening. Number 1. Draw a circle around the heart. Go. Number 2, cross out the line and circle the star. Go. Doing great.
Thanks.
Number 3, draw a line from the top of the tree to the bottom of the light bulb. Go.
Scoring is straightforward, but you have to ensure that the student does not say your form as the correct response is given. The student's performance could be influenced by the examiner as they copy their response, resulting in anxiety, or if the directions are not spoken clearly, there is no opportunity to repeat them.
The purpose of including reading fluency as a subtest is to look at automatic word recognition of orthographic patterns, including irregular spelling, and to also look at the accuracy of reading ability at the word level. Before administering the test, the speech pathologist must select the story based on the child's age. There is no basal or ceiling. The student starts by reading the story title followed by the facts. Repetition of the rules is allowed in that they may skip unknown words.
So here are some facts that tell a story. First, read the title out loud.
The class pet.
Right? Now read the facts.
The class has a pet.
Nice work.
It is a hamster.
Good job.
The hamster has spots.
Nice.
I have a hamster at home.
You do. That's awesome.
They put him in the cage.
Great work, Felice. You're doing so well.
No, I don't want to do this anymore.
How about one more?
No,
And then we can stop.
I'm done.
To score the test, students earn credit only for the words that they read fluently and without any struggle or difficulty. If there were self-corrections, repetitions of whole word phrases, or if the child added a word or a phrase, these counted as one error. If the test was discontinued, as was in this case, the remaining items would be 0. Don't forget to record the raw scores, standard scores, and percentile ranks on the front of the examiner record form, followed by plotting the standard scores on the graph. Lastly, record the confidence intervals for each subtest.
In this subtest, items are read aloud by the examiner and shown in large print. This means performance is independent of hearing and reading ability. Points are given for reasoning to ensure that the child understands the semantics of the word pairing. Words are curriculum related and they are common but not too simple. While the recording is used for consistency, a lack of video can be challenging for listeners who use lip reading to understand speech. Additionally, the recording uses an unnatural voice stimulus. The examiner's manual should have a note stating that students who are hard of hearing should also do non-word reading to account for the student's hearing abilities.
For this subtest, we liked that students have the option of reading silently or aloud based on preference, and the fact that the subtest items are comprised of short sentences that increase in syntactic complexity, which is reflective of the development of academic language. The stories also seem to be a valid measure of reading comprehension, as the questions that follow each story likely cannot be answered without having read the passage itself. Within the instructions, we found that the use of the words maybe and clearly could be misleading for younger children, and that the stories may not reflect reading comprehension in classroom tasks.
Critiques we had of the following direction subtest. We had difficulties completing this subtest. 2D pictures may be tricky for some children. No practice of sequential items were given. and no modifications for children with motor difficulties were included in the manual. Things that we liked about this subtest are the pictures are consistent across the age groups and are simple, common items that all young children be expected to know and be familiar with.
For the reading fluency subtest, one of the critiques we had is in consideration of a child with a stutter, as it is unclear how a child with a stutter would be scored in terms of their speech sound errors. One of the things that we liked about the reading fluency subtest is that the syntactic complexity is consistent, the length is reflective of what would be expected to read in school, and you can use cardstock to help the child read through the story.